You're 19, sitting on the back steps of a row house on Federal Street, Youngstown, Ohio, the mill's furnace glow staining the low clouds orange even at 10 at night. The smell that never leaves this town, hot iron, sulfur, wet slag, sits on your tongue like a second language you were born speaking. Your father, Stanislaw Stan Kowalski, has worked the open hearth furnaces at Youngstown Sheet and Tube for 22 years. He came home from Okinawa in 1945 with 2 fingers on his left hand that don't bend right anymore, and a Purple Heart he keeps in a drawer, not a frame. He doesn't talk about the Pacific. He talks about tonnage, about shift changes, about keeping your head down and your hands where the foreman can see them. Every night, at 6, he sits at the head of the table in a shirt that still smells faintly of the furnace floor, no matter how many times your mother washes it. Your mother, Sophia, keeps a rosary looped over the kitchen radio, and she crosses herself every time the 6 o'clock news opens with a body count from a place she can't find on a map. Your sister, Angela, is 15, all elbows and opinions, practicing cheerleading routines to the driveway to a transistor radio balanced on the porch rail. Ricky Palermo has been your best friend since 2nd grade, and right now he's leaning against your porch rail with 2 draft notices folded in his shirt pocket, his and yours. Carol Ann Whitfield sits 1 step below you, her fingers laced through yours, close enough that you can smell the drugstore perfume she saves for seeing you. The first thing you were sure of a month ago, you'd work the mill like your father, on the same floor, under the same furnace glow. The second, you'd marry Carol Ann by 22, in the church on Oak Hill where your parents married. The third, you'd save 11 months' mill wages for a Camaro the color of a fire engine, and drive it slow past her house so the whole street would see. Your father sits down heavy next to you on the step, the draft notice still in your hand, and says the only thing he'll say about it: a man does his job and comes home. Don't be a hero. Be alive. You don't ask him what he means by hero. You have a feeling he's not talking about you yet. 2 towns over, your mother's brother, Uncle Walt, lost 2 fingers of his own at the Chosin Reservoir, Korea, winter of 1950. Every 4th of July, Walt leaves the backyard the second the first firework cracks, and comes back 20 minutes later like nothing happened. Every time the war leaves the evening news, Walt gets up from his chair and finds a reason to be in another room until it's over. The night before your bus to Fort Campbell, Walt drives over unannounced, sits across the kitchen table from you, and doesn't touch his coffee. He says it low, like he's handing you something heavy. It's not the dying you gotta worry about, kid. It's what you do to stay alive. That's the part you carry home. You don't understand it yet. You nod like you do. Fort Campbell, Kentucky, February 1968. The bus door hisses open onto a floodlit gravel lot, and a man screaming that your mother isn't here anymore. The first week is haircuts, paperwork, and boots that haven't broken in yet, blistering both heels raw by day 3. Sergeant Ezra Boone walks the barracks aisle the first night, boots loud on the concrete, and tells you his 3 rules. He only says them once. Keep your head down. Keep your buddy alive. Keep your mouth shut around the brass. Weeks blur into low-crawl mud under live wire, rifle disassembly by touch in pitch dark, bayonet drills that leave your shoulders aching by lights out. Ricky pukes after the 10-mile ruck march in April, laughing about it before he's even finished wiping his mouth. You and Ricky get assigned to the same platoon through some clerical accident neither of you questions out loud, in case questioning it undoes it. Airborne school follows in the summer, 5 jumps from a C-130 that never stop terrifying you no matter how many times the static line does its job. On your last jump, Ricky lands wrong, walks it off, and tells everyone at Chow it felt like getting tackled by God. You get your orders in November, 3rd Battalion, 187th, 101st Airborne, the Rakkasans, bound to I Corps, South Vietnam. Carol Ann Whitfield meets you at the bus station before you ship out, and she doesn't cry, which is somehow worse than if she had. She makes you promise one thing, gripping both your hands.
Don't tell me it's fine if it's not. I'd rather worry real than be lied to. You promise, you mean it. March 1969, the plane doors open in Da Nang and the heat hits you like a hand on your chest, thick with jet fuel and jungle rot and something Swedish underneath you can't name yet. A staff sergeant with a clipboard reads off names for truck assignments in a bored voice, like he's done this 1,000 times, because he has. The truck ride inland shows you your first burned-out hamlet from the highway, gone before you can make sense of what you saw. You pass a convoy of South Vietnamese soldiers heading the opposite direction, and nobody in your truck says a word about it. The base camp at Camp Eagle smells like diesel generators and burning trash, a haze hanging low over rows of tin-roofed hooches. A sunburned specialist processing your paperwork tells you without looking up that the average FNG lasts longer if he shuts up and watches. FNG, you learn the term before you learn most of your own squad's names. It means exactly what it sounds like. You zero your rifle on a makeshift range behind the wire, the recoil already less foreign than it was at Fort Campbell. A corporal shows you how to wrap your dog tags in tape so they don't jingle on patrol. A small, practical kindness from a stranger. Your first mail call in country produces nothing for you yet, and you watch other men's faces light up around letters that aren't yours. Your first night on perimeter guard, every shadow in the wire looks like it's moving, and none of them are. Somewhere beyond the wire, distant thumps roll across the valley. Outgoing artillery, a veteran next to you says, not close enough to worry about yet. By your third day, you can already tell incoming from outgoing by sound alone, a skill you never asked to learn. Your first letter home describes sunshine and card games. It is a lie. You mailed the promise to Carol Ann in the same envelope you broke it in. A helicopter lifts your platoon out to a forward fire base, the open door air roaring loud enough to swallow every thought in your head. The A Shau Valley swallows the horizon in every direction, triple canopy green, red clay mud that sucks your boot off with every step. Leeches find you only after they've already fed, fat and dark against your ankle in the shower line. The rhythm sets in fast, patrol at dawn, dig in by dusk, the radio's static hiss threading through every silence. Sea rations, ham and lima beans nobody claims to like, heated over a folded heat tab, become the taste of every single day. Rain starts in April and doesn't seem to plan on stopping, turning every trail into a thing that fights you for your own boots. You meet Tuan, a Kit Carson Scout, a former Viet Cong fighter who defected and now walks point for American units. The first thing you feel looking at him is the muzzle of your own distrust, aimed somewhere you can't quite justify. Boone doesn't trust him either. He led the other side once. He can lead them again, Boone says, not quietly enough for Tuan to hear it. Tuan hears it, says nothing, keeps walking point anyway, 3 steps ahead of the man who insulted him, because someone has to find the trail wire before it finds you. On a patrol outside a hamlet, Tuan stops the column with a raised fist, points to a nearly invisible disturbance in the red clay. A 105 MA dud, rigged as a booby trap, buried so shallow only someone who'd planted mines like it before could have seen it. Boone waves the column forward anyway, impatient, 3 clicks behind schedule, certain his own eyes are enough. The blast takes off half of Private Ochoa's leg below the knee. Dust and red mist, someone screaming your name for a tourniquet. You move before you think. Belt cinched tight, Ochoa's face gone white. Tuan's face doesn't say, "I told you so." It says something worse, that he already knew this was how it was going to go, and he's tired of being right about the cost. Ochoa is medvaced out on a dust-off chopper that flattens the grass for 100 feet in every direction. You never see him again. A rumor reaches you weeks later that he's stateside, learning to walk on a leg that isn't his. You start listening to Tuan the way you used to only pretend to listen to Boone. Your second letter to Carol Ann describes a quiet supply post, guitars around a fire. Ochoa's leg is not in it. You tell yourself you'll write the true one tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't come for a long time. March 10th, 1969, Operation Apache Snow pushes into the A Shau Valley, and your battalion is ordered up the slopes of a mountain the maps call Hill 937. The Vietnamese call it Apia. The grunts start calling it something else within the first 2 days, once the fighting doesn't stop.
From the base of the ridge, the mountain doesn't look like much until the first mortar round tells you the NVA have been dug into these slopes for months. Rotor wash flattens the elephant grass. You're moving. Ricky's 10 feet to your left. Tracers cut sideways through fog. Someone's yelling, "Bunker, bunker, left." You go flat, mud in your mouth. Ricky laughs. Actually laughs. Says something about his sister's graduation next month. Like the gunfire is background noise at a barbecue. Like the mountain isn't trying to kill you both at once. A grenade lands short of the tree line. Boone screams to pull back. You pull Ricky by the collar. He's still laughing when you go over the ridge lip together. That night, dug into a hasty perimeter in the rain, nobody sleeps. Somewhere below, the NVA are repositioning. Somewhere behind, another platoon is calling in their dead over a crackling handset. Ricky, soaked to the bone, pulls a photo of his little sister's junior prom dress out of a plastic bag. He shows it to you like it's the most important document in the war. In this moment, to him, it is. You laugh with him, quiet, careful, because laughing too loud up here gets men killed. May 11th. The second assault jumps off at first light, straight into machine gun fire from bunkers you can't see until they open up. The assault stalls 2/3 up the slope. The order comes down to pull back and let the artillery work the hill over instead. For the next 2 days, airstrikes and artillery hammer the summit around the clock, the ground shuddering under you even from half a mile back. Fog rolls in on May 13th, thick enough that resupply choppers can't find the landing zone, and rations run thin across the whole battalion. Word passes down that the hill has more bunkers than anyone estimated, a defense that's clearly been dug in and stocked for months, not weeks. On May 14th, a third major assault reaches the false crest before another wave of grenades and small arms fire drives the company back down. You watch a man 2 positions over take a round through the shoulder, spin, and keep firing before anyone can stop him. Wounded stack up faster than the medvacs can clear them, waiting under ponchos at the base of the slope for a chopper that has to run a gauntlet to reach them. Boone doesn't sleep more than an hour at a stretch. You watch him age 5 years in 5 days. By May 15th, 3 other American battalions and a South Vietnamese battalion have been committed to the fight, converging on the hill from multiple directions. None of that means anything to you at ground level. You only know your own 20 meters of slope, same as always. Word filters down that other American units are calling this fight something ugly in the press back home, a mountain not worth the cost. You don't think about the press. You think about the mud, the mortars, and whether Ricky's laugh will still be there tomorrow. On May 18th, a 4th major assault reaches within grenade range of the summit lunkers before being thrown back by a counterattack. A fresh company of replacements arrives that night, faces you don't recognize, eyes that already look older than they should. By now, the hill has its own smell, cordite, wet earth, and something underneath neither you nor anyone else names out loud. May 20th. The 10th assault up Hill 937 finally reaches the summit. Bunkers cleared one at a time. Grenade. Wait. Clear. Next. A burst of AK fire catches your squad from a spider hole you'd already walked past. Ricky goes down hard, grabbing his side. You drag him behind a shattered tree stump, pressure on the wound. His hand finds yours, grips it too tight to be anything but scared. "Tell Angie I saw her dress," he says, which makes no sense and makes complete sense. Then the corpsman is there, and then he's not looking at you anymore. The mountain is quiet within the hour.
Somebody radios that the hill is secure. Nobody up here feels secure about anything. Ricky doesn't die on the hill. He dies 2 days later in a hospital tent in Pubai. The telegram that reaches Youngstown says, "died of wounds," 2 words that will mean nothing and everything to his mother. Command orders the hill abandoned 3 weeks after it's taken. You are not told why, and you decide not asking is its own kind of survival. You don't write to Carol Ann for 11 days after Hamburger Hill. When you finally do, the letter says you're fine. It is, again, a lie. Tuan finds you on watch one night, sits without asking, doesn't offer comfort. In my village, we buried our dead facing home. You people bury yours on paper, in telegrams. I do not know which is worse. The monsoon settles in for real now. Days of gray mud that never fully dries between rains. Wet socks become a permanent condition, not a temporary inconvenience, blistering your feet white and soft. The firebase perimeter sandbags rot faster than the engineers can replace them, slumping in on themselves like tired shoulders. Letters from home arrive soaked through, Carol Ann's handwriting blurred into something you have to guess at more than read. Mail call becomes the only clock anyone actually trusts, more reliable than any calendar. Boone changes after the hill. He drinks more of the beer that comes up on the resupply chopper. He stops handing out his 3 rules like scripture, like the rules themselves let him down on that ridge. One rain-soaked night, he tells you, half to himself, that he should have listened to Tuan at that hamlet. It's the only apology you ever hear him make, and he never says it twice. Fall 1969. Vietnamization is the word coming down from command now. Nobody in your platoon could tell you what it means beyond fewer replacements arriving and more South Vietnamese units taking the lead. A company that used to run at full strength now runs short-handed, patrols stretched thinner across the same ground. You don't think about strategy. You think about the trail 20 meters ahead and whether the mud on it has been disturbed since yesterday.
A new private named Ferris rotates in, 18 years old, boots still stiff, eyes too wide for this valley. Boone puts him under your wing without asking whether you want the job. You find yourself repeating Boone's rules to Ferris, almost word for word. Head down, buddy. Alive, mouth shut. You understand, for the first time, why Boone said them like scripture. Scripture is just a rule you're afraid to break. Late in the tour, a resupply patrol gets ambushed fording a river swollen with rain. Word comes back over the radio that a man is missing, swept downstream, last seen grabbing for a branch. Boone makes the call to keep moving, get the rest of the patrol to the tree line, come back for the missing man if there's time. There isn't time. The man, a supply clerk named Hutch, more paperwork than infantry, is never found. A search patrol walks the riverbank for 2 days downstream. They find a boot, nothing else. Boone doesn't talk about it, but you see him not talking about it every day after, in the way he stops looking at the river on patrols near it. You don't judge him out loud. You judge him plenty in the dark, on watch, where nobody can hear you doing it. The days to rotation count starts the way it always does. Someone scratches a number into a sandbag. After that, the number is the only thing anyone talks about, more than the war, more than home. 47 days. You check your rifle twice as often as you used to. 41 days. You catch yourself doing math you never used to do. How many patrols? How many nights? How many chances left for something to go wrong? 31 days. Tuan asks you what home smells like. You realize you can't remember exactly, only that it isn't this. 24 days. A resupply chopper brings mail, sea rations, and a new lieutenant fresh from the world who salutes too crisply for anyone's comfort. 19 days.
A rumor moves through the firebase that short-timers are the ones who get killed because they stop trusting their instincts and start trusting their calendars. 12 days. Tuan tells you unprompted that when the Americans leave for good, men like him will have nowhere left to stand. You have no answer for him. Neither does he expect one. 6 days. A night patrol trips a flare line at the wire. Muzzle flashes stitch the tree line. Ferris freezes. You grab his collar the way you once grabbed Ricky's. In the chaos, word crackles over the radio. A 2-man LP position forward of the wire hasn't checked in. One of them is Ferris's bunkmate, Delgado. Boone freezes at the radio, hand halfway to the handset, and you watch him relive the river in real time. The decision he made once already, the one he's never forgiven himself for. "I'm going," he says, and it isn't a question to anyone, least of all himself. You go with him. 5 days from home. You don't examine the decision. There isn't time, and some part of you already knows there won't be a version of yourself that could have stayed behind. Low crawl through wire, elephant grass slick with rain. Muzzle flashes ahead marking where the LP dug in and didn't move. You find Delgado alive, shaking, out of ammunition. His partner is already gone. There's no time to grieve that now. Falling back toward the wire, a burst of fire opens up from the flank. Boone shoves Delgado forward, turns to cover the retreat himself. You don't see exactly what happens to him. You hear it. A sound you will spend decades trying and failing not to hear again. By the time the wire lights light back on and the perimeter's secure, Sergeant Ezra Boone is dead. 5 days before your rotation home, on the one night he chose differently than the river. Nobody says it's fair. Nobody says it's not. You just sit against a sandbag wall until the sun comes up. Delgado alive, 20 feet away, breathing. Because a man who once left someone in a river went back for someone else instead. The last 5 days pass the way grief does. Slow, then all at once, then slow again. You clean your rifle because your hands need a job more than the rifle needs cleaning. Tuan sits with you without talking, which by now is its own kind of language. On your final morning at the firebase, Tuan hands you nothing. No object, no keepsake, just a nod and a sentence. Go be alive somewhere that isn't this. That is the only souvenir worth carrying. You never learn what happens to Tuan after you leave. You will wonder about it on and off for the rest of your life and never get an answer you can fully trust. February 1970. The plane touches down stateside, and the first thing that hits you isn't relief. It's how ordinary the tarmac looks, like it doesn't know what it's supposed to mean to you. At the airport gate, a small knot of protesters holds signs you don't read closely. One mutters something at your uniform as you pass. You keep walking, Boone's rule still working, mouth shut. There's no parade in Youngstown. Your father picks you up alone, shakes your hand instead of hugging you. You're thinner, he says, and that's the whole conversation on the ride home. Your mother cries at the stove with her back to you, so you won't see it, though you do anyway. Angela is 17 now, a stranger with your sister's face, and she doesn't know whether to hug you or interview you, so she does neither. Ricky's mother sees you across the grocery store 2 weeks later and has to leave her cart in the aisle. You go find her outside. Neither of you has the right words, so you just stand there together in the parking lot.
Carol Ann meets you at the diner where you used to split a milkshake. She's kept every letter you sent, the cheerful, dishonest ones, in a shoebox she sets on the table between you. "You never told me the truth," she says, not angry, just tired. You start to tell her now. The river, Ricky, the hill, Boone. You watch it cost her something to hear it, the same way it's costing you to say it. You don't break up that night. It happens slower than that. Fewer calls, fewer diner nights. Two people quietly becoming people who used to know each other. Neither of you is the villain. The war just got there first. You take a job at the mill, like you always said you would. The furnace glow through your bedroom window now looks less like home and more like tracer fire some nights. The smell of wet asphalt after summer rain, the exact smell of the A Shau tree line the morning Ricky died, stops you cold in a parking lot the first time it happens. It happens again the next summer, and the one after that. You learn to recognize the smell coming half a block away and brace for it the way you used to brace for incoming. 1973. The Paris Peace Accords are signed, and the news says American ground troops are finally, fully coming home. You already came home 3 years ago. The news still makes something in your chest loosen anyway. 1975, the news shows helicopters lifting off a rooftop in Saigon, and you sit in front of the television with a beer going warm in your hand. You think of Tuan, wondering if he made it onto one of those roofs or was ever meant to. You never find out. Some questions, you decide, don't get answers. Uncertainty turns out to be a thing you can live inside if you have to. You marry, eventually, not Carol Ann, someone from 3 streets over you meet at a cousin's wedding in 1976. You raise a son who asks about the war exactly once at 14 and accepts your silence without pushing. You go to Ricky's mother's funeral in 1994 and stand next to Angela, Ricky's sister, not yours, outside the church afterwards. "She told me he saw my prom dress," she says, like she's been waiting 25 years to tell someone that made him smile at the end. You tell her he did. You don't tell her how. Decades on, you're 60-some, sitting on a different porch, in a different house, on a street that still isn't Federal Street. Your granddaughter, home from a school unit on the 60s, asks you what it was really like over there. The wet asphalt smell rises off the driveway after an afternoon storm, and for 1 second, you're not on the porch at all. You let the second pass. You always do now. It doesn't own you the way it used to. You tell her about Ricky's sister's prom dress before you tell her about the hill. You tell her about Tuan's steady footsteps 3 paces ahead of men who didn't trust him. You tell her about a sergeant who made the wrong call once at a river, and the right one at a wire 5 days before he would have gone home too. She asks if you were scared. You tell her the truth, finally. Yes, every day. And that was never the part that mattered most. What mattered, you tell her, is what a man does with the fear, whether he goes back into the dark for someone else or lets the river take them. She doesn't fully understand yet. That's all right. Neither did you at 19, sitting on a different porch, being told the same thing by a man with 2 fingers that didn't bend right. Don't be a hero, you tell her, your father's words in your mouth 40 years later. Be alive and go back for people anyway, when it counts. The porch light hums. Somewhere behind the house, a car radio passes by playing something too faint to name. The mill, long since quieter than it used to be, still glows faint orange against the low clouds, the same color it always was.